how does a test report relate to the product's requirements and acceptance criteria?
Yeah, hopefully it does. Hopefully you're paying attention to what the product is and the things that you require of it. And if you're looking at a particular user story, then you're looking at the acceptance criteria, right? If you get a user story and you've tested it, and then you're telling me about your testing, but you still haven't covered some of the acceptance criteria, that would be the first and probably most obvious thing to ask about your testing, right? Why wasn't this covered? Or can you tell me more about your process or your time constraints, right? What did you not find important about this particular acceptance criteria? Maybe it's so obvious, right? Maybe the acceptance criteria says like the page loads within 15 seconds. And obviously if you tested it within a few minutes, then it must have loaded quickly enough for you to have gotten through all of that, right? Maybe it's implicit in the report that it occurred. But yeah, I would expect that you're addressing some of those things. I think also a test report can be I think the acceptance criteria you may think that is what you should test and that is what you should report on, right? That people only think about those things that are listed. And I would encourage you instead to think about a test report as the beginning of a conversation rather than the end.
Okay.
Right. So if I say, right, like I checked this page with this user, looks good. That is a test report. But if your test report instead says, right, I logged in with this user, I saw this weird loading spinner, and then I saw like this other thing happened on the page before it finished loading, and then I don't know if this mattered, but this other thing was out of place. You have a lot more questions, right? You have a lot more to dig into and to decide about what you're going to look at next. Your developer can say, the loading is not our problem, but the weird thing on the page is. Right, you're then not deciding for yourself what to triage and how to spend your time, but yeah, creating a more thorough report allows other people to get involved in what you're testing next.
Cool. I like that, framing that as the start of the conversation rather than the end. I think a lot of us tend to think of like that's the final, and I'm done.
Oh,
bye.
Yeah. And I think particularly when you are good at testing, your team trusts you to be the final stamp, right? They're like, oh, I want to make sure Elizabeth looks at this before it goes out. That's the feeling of like, oh, then it's really good if it's passed through her. But you shouldn't be, or I try not to decide for myself what is good or what matters to other people. I can decide for myself what matters to me. But I don't think that I'm representative of my whole team, or certainly not of all of our users, right? Hopefully your product owner helps you become the proxy for that, or if you have access to your customers, then you can be a better person to have a feeling for what is important. I think we've covered the acceptance criteria question.
Awesome.